The topic of the Perek is Yiras Hashem, and as we discussed last week at length, in the last lesson we discussed that the way to arrive at Yiras Hashem is through Das, is through contemplating Hashem's greatness in a Das way, as we explained last week at length what that means, the difference between a Das contemplation and a Bina contemplation. And last week we concluded that a person should think and focus on the idea. They have to stay away from Averis and have to do mitzvahs. Because Hashem is watching, He's paying attention, and He's listening. He's understanding. He's watching everything you're doing. As Chacham tell us in Sechtas Avis, this is what we finished off last week. Let's run a third of the way up from the bottom of the page Samach. Histakel b'shleisha dvarim, that a person think deeply about three things, and you won't do any averis. And what are they? Ayin reya, Eizin shamas, the fact that Hashem has an eye that sees, and an ear that hears, v'chulu, etc. So this is part of his baininus, part of the contemplation that a yid has in order to get das, and in order thereby to have Yiras Hashem, is thinking about how Hashem is watching everything that we are doing. Now, there's a very famous story about the Chafetz Chaim, that he was once taking a ride somewhere. He was being taken in a wagon by a balagala, a wagon driver, and they passed by a orchard, and the wagon driver sees there's some nice fruit over there, and he was a little hungry. So he stopped the coach at the side of the road, and he told the Chafetz Chaim, he says, I'm going to go pick some fruit, and you tell me if you see anyone's watching, then let me know. Especially if you see the owner, then tell me that he's watching, and I'll know quickly to run back to the wagon. So the guy runs out, and as he's about to take a fruit, Chafetz Chaim starts screaming at him, he's watching. So he quickly scampers back onto the wagon, and he whips the horse, and they go, and after like a half a mile or a mile, he turns to the Chafetz Chaim and says, thank you so much for being my watchman and for taking care of me. By the way, who is watching? So Chaim said, Hashem is watching. So, let me ask you, the wagon driver didn't know that Hashem was watching? I don't know, I'm presuming that the wagon driver was a Yid. I don't know, maybe it was a Goya. Never heard all the details of the story. I didn't see the movie. But presuming that it was a Yid, or the rest of us who sometimes we do things that are unbecoming of someone who's aware of the fact that Hashem is watching all our behaviors. Why do we act that way if Hashem is watching? We know Hashem is watching. As we learned in the last page, what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, that halavai shehi meir shamayim aleichem kameir basar v'dam, right? That we fear our fellow more than we fear Hashem. That makes any sense? If I see a 10-year-old kid on the street, can't do anything to me, he's a nothing, doesn't even know my name, but I won't behave inappropriately in his presence. And Hashem, the creator of heaven and earth, not the one who created heaven and earth, the creator who's constantly creating heaven and earth, and Kehine Kachomer B'yad HaYetzer, we all said, we are like clay in his hands, and he's watching us always. Why aren't we nispal? Why aren't we impacted? No?
We are human beings.
We don't see him, we can't relate to him, we have no rapport. He's invisible.
We are human beings, but I'm a human being also when the 10-year-old is watching me. And still I behave. So that doesn't explain it. But the difference is that Hashem is spiritual, and I'm physical, and therefore the whole concept is somewhat difficult to relate. So that is a challenge that we are going to be talking about right now. How do we get over this challenge? The fact, you're telling me that Hashem is watching me and Hashem is listening to me. But let's look inside. Let's start inside. Page Samach. The first word in the line is Ruroya, which we're on a third of the way down up from the bottom of the page, where it says Vegam. Vegam ki ein leid musaguf. But the Eibishter, you're telling me that he has an eye that's watching, he has and an ear that's listening. He has no body. He has no eyes. Hashem has no eyes. Hashem has no ears. And moreover, the Alter Rebbe doesn't only say Vegam ki ein leguf. It doesn't say that. It's not only he doesn't have a body. Ein leid musaguf. What does a demus mean? A demus means a likeness. He doesn't even have the spiritual likeness of a body. It's not as if there's spiritual eyes or spiritual ears. Hashem is completely above and beyond and transcends all these things. So how am I supposed to have Yiras Hashem from an entity which doesn't have eyes, doesn't have ears, doesn't have a body? So the Rebbe is going to tell us that's the contrary. When we have this thought that Hashem doesn't have a body, He doesn't have eyes, He doesn't have ears, we can flip it on its head and use it to our advantage. Why? Says the Alter Rebbe, Hari Adarabah, it's the contrary. Because He has no body, and He has no eyes, and He has no ears, so how is He aware of everything that's going on? No. Can you be aware of something if if your eyes are closed and you're wearing No, you can't?
Zero.
Really?
Only logically you can philosophize.
So if you're wearing a blindfold and ear thingies, what are they called?
Earplugs.
Earplugs, and I came and I slapped you in your face, you wouldn't know that I slapped you in your face?
Yes, I do.
Are you? No eyes, no ears, how do you know?
I feel it.
You sense light if you don't have if your eyes are closed. Light you still sense.
Well, it depends how thick the...
Right, but you still...
But the point is, there's two ways to know something. One way is my eyes and ears. My eyes and ears make me aware of things that are outside of me. But for something that's happening inside of me, if I have a headache, I don't need to see my headache to know that I have a headache. I don't need to hear my headache. What?
I have to feel it.
How do I know it? It's intrinsic knowledge. Because I am me, so I am aware of everything that's going on within me. So Alter Rebbe is going to say Hashem's knowledge of everything that goes on in the world is not with eyes and ears, it's deeper. Hashem knows everything that you do the same way you know when you have a headache. Like, imagine you come, you say, I have a headache, and I'll say, prove it. What do you prove it? How do you know you have a headache? So the knowledge that we have, intrinsic knowledge, is much deeper and much more absolute and much more essential than any knowledge that we get through that come to us through our eyes or through our ears, because it's something which is within us. Hashem's awareness of everything that goes on in this world is in that same way. So therefore, the fact that Hashem doesn't have eyes or ears or a body, that doesn't mean that He knows less what's going on. That means He knows more and in a much deeper way what's going on. When I hear something, maybe I heard it well, maybe I didn't hear it well. When I see something, maybe I saw it well, maybe I didn't see it well. Maybe my memory of it isn't so good. But when something is going on inside me,
you know it.
I know it. And the Hashem's knowledge of the world is in the exact same way. So if you think to yourself, oh, but how does Hashem know? After all, He doesn't have a body. That itself actually leads you to the conclusion that Hashem's knowledge is an even greater and deeper and more essential one than anything with a body, insight. But to the contrary, everything is known and revealed to Him. So much infinitely more so than that which is perceived by the eye, or that which a person hears with the ear. Rather, how does Hashem know everything? By way of example, like a person who knows and feels by himself anything that's happening or it's done by any one of his 248 limbs. For example, cold. You don't need to look to see if you have goosebumps to know if you're cold or not, or if you're red, or heat. Even if you stick your toenail into something which is hot, you'll feel it, even though that it's the lowest part of you. If it gets burnt by fire, you'll know it. You know anything that's going on with any part of your body, and you also know the fact that they exist. And similarly, all your sensations and your feelings that you have because of any part of your body, you're aware of it and you know it in your mind, in your brain. Similar to this kind of knowledge, Hashem knows anything that happens in all the creations, the higher ones, the lower ones. Why? Because everything comes from Hashem. So just like the reason why the brain feels the pain of any part of the body is because the chayis, the life force, which is in every part of the body, in every limb, comes from the brain, and it's constantly coming from the brain, coming and going, coming and going. So therefore the brain, the nerve, the signals, the brain senses anything that's going on in any part of the body because every part of the body is receiving chayis from the brain. The same thing, because all of creation, everything, is receiving chayis constantly from Hashem. So therefore Hashem is aware of what's going on with everything, not with a knowledge or an awareness that's outside of Him, but with a knowledge and awareness which is part of who He is. Because this is that He's giving chayis to everything. As the pasuk says, Ki mimcha hakoil, 2 lines from the bottom, Mimcha hakoil, everything we say, everything comes from you. V'zehu sha'imrim, this is what we said, we just finished saying this on Rosh Hashanah. V'gam kol ha'yitzur, and also all that which was fashioned, le'nichad mimecha, is not withheld from you. In other words, because you fashion it, because everything is your yitzur, everything is your yitzira, everything is fashioned by Hashem, therefore automatically He's aware of everything that goes on with everything. As the Rambam says, and I'm going to skip for right now the brackets, we'll get back to it. This is something which we've learned in Tanya on several occasions. The Rambam says, Shibidias atzmei kaviyocho, yodeya kol hanevroim hanimtsoim ma'amitas yimotzei v'chulu. That Hashem knows everything by knowing Himself. He knows everything that's going on with everything by knowing Himself. Why? Because everything comes from amitas yimotzei, because everything derives from Him, not only derived from Him, but derives from Him at every single moment. So therefore, Hashem's self-knowledge, just like we have self-knowledge, Hashem's self-knowledge, He is aware of everything that goes on in the world. Sorry? Yeah, the truth of Hashem's existence, yeah. As the Rambam says, that hu hamada, hu yedeya, hu hayadua. Again, this is a concept we've discussed in the past, that by a human being, when we understand something, there are 3 things. There's the person, there's the person's knowledge, and those are 2 distinct entities, because the person existed before he had that knowledge, and the person will exist even after he forgets that knowledge. So there's the person, there's the person's knowledge, and then there is that which the person knows. And by Hashem, all 3 are one. Hashem is one. Hashem is one with His knowledge, and also He is one with that which He knows. Everything He knows by knowing Himself, because He is one with everything that there is. In the brackets, the Alter Rebbe writes, even though that this is something which the Rambam writes, and we know the Rambam generally is considered to be from the school of thought called the Chokrim, the philosophers, not the Mekubalim. But the Chachmei Kabbalah in this area, the Chachmei Kabbalah agree with the Rambam, as the Ramak, Ramesha Kardavira writes in the Sefer of Pardes, in the Sefer Pardes Shemainim. So even the Kabbalah also agrees that Hashem is one, and that with that which He knows, and the fact that Hashem knows everything is due to self-knowledge.
It said,
Right.
That's a problem. But Hashem is, if you like it.
The fact that Hashem is aware of everything, that's a given. But what we're saying over here, that His awareness of everything is self-awareness. And that's a much deeper awareness than anything that a person can see or can hear. It says, right?
That's not
so Rashi, sorry?
Ayin Roya means that he sees Lamas.
Right, so what is Lo Sasuru? So Chazal say the word Sasuru means is the same word as Sarsur, is a middleman. That the eye is a middleman. It sells you stuff. It's like a middleman that comes and says, I have a good product for you. So your eyes, the word Sasuru is similar to the word Sarsur. And in Hebrew, Sarsur is a
virtue.
Someone who buys from one and sells to another. In other words, the nekuda of an eye is that it's not self-knowledge. It's giving you awareness of something which is outside of you, as opposed to self-knowledge. So by Hashem, His knowledge is not through an eye, which makes Him aware of something outside of Him, which obviously that awareness is nowhere as strong as an awareness of something which is inside of you. Says that, so therefore, again, going back to the context of this is, when a person says, how can I fear Hashem if he has no body, he has no eyes, he has no ears, you answer it to yourself, yeah, because he has no body, he has no eyes, and he has no ears, so how is he aware of me? Through self-knowledge, and that's a much deeper awareness than that which is possible through any of the senses. Aval Be'emes says the Alter Rebbe, in truth, however, ein hamashal deimel l'nimshal klal. Even though that we just gave an example of self-knowledge, it's not really a good mashal. It's not really similar. The purpose, the Alter Rebbe says, I'm giving you this mashal only to calm down your ears. It's an expression, like Hamas HaMelach Shachacha. To give you something, a little inkling to be able to understand something, but it's not really similar. Aval Be'emes, ein hamashal deimel l'nimshal klal. The mashal is not similar to the nimshal. Ki nefesh ha'adam, and why is that? Let's do this first outside, then we'll do it inside. Alter Rebbe says like this: by a person, the neshama has self-knowledge, is aware. The neshama is aware of everything that's going on in the body. It's a two-way street, however. Just like the neshama is aware of what's going on and everything in the body, the neshama also is impacted by everything that's going on in the body. So, for example, if a person, chas v'shalom, his foot is hurting, so the nefesh, the soul, is aware of it. That's what we're talking about, the self-knowledge. But the soul is also impacted by it. Ever tried sitting and learning with a headache? Or with a footache? So it's your mind, how is your mind impacted? Your nefesh hasichlis, how is that impacted? But the nefesh and the guf become completely one to the point that they are in a relationship wherein one affects the other, and that's why it's so important to, the Rambam talks about Hayois Ha'adam Bari is Medarki Avodas Hashem, that being healthy is part of serving Hashem, and why is that? Because the neshama is influenced and impacted by
The guf.
What about it says, Kol hash berosho ya'asok b'Torah?
That's a good question for after class. So therefore, what do we have? Yeah, the neshama unites with and is intimately aware of everything that's going on in the body. But at the same time, that very relationship, which causes the neshama to be aware, also because of this inextricable bond between the neshama and the guf. So therefore, the neshama is also impacted by the guf.
That's actually why it knows what's going on, because it's impacted.
Very good. In fact, what you're saying is correct. How is it that the neshama knows what's going on in the body? Is because it's impacted, because the nerves are constantly sending messages and transmitters to the brain, and it knows what it feels good, it doesn't feel good. So by Hashem, it doesn't work that way. Hashem is aware of every single thing that goes on over here in this world with self-knowledge, but he's not impacted. He's not impacted. So in this way, the mashal and the nimshal aren't exact. Let's do this inside. Because the soul of a person, not only what you call the nefesh hachiyunis or the nefesh habahamis, the soul that's giving life to the body, but even the part of the soul which is called the nefesh hasichlis, the intellectual soul, ve'elikis, even the godly soul. He mispa'elas is impacted and affected from the happenings of the body, vitzare, and any pain that the body experiences. Why? Machmas hislapshusha mamish benefesh achayunis, because the neshama is invested, enclosed within the nefesh achayunis hamlubashes beguf, which is in the body, mamish. But Hashem is not impacted in any way by the happenings of the world, and any changes that occur in the world. The world itself doesn't impact him. The whole creation of the world didn't impact him. None of them make any change within him. In other words, if Hashem were to be impacted by something that happens in the world, that means that Hashem changed. And we know it says, Ani Hashem leishan nisi. Hashem doesn't change. Hashem doesn't change means that Hashem can't be impacted by anything in the world, because that by definition would mean, let's say something happens in the world, that makes Hashem sad. That means there's a change in Hashem.
So why do you say Hashem is angry?
It's a good question. That's not talking about the essence of Hashem like we're talking about over here. In other words, the truth is,
that metaphor,
in a Lakus, there are different levels. I was waiting for someone to say, Pirkei Avos says that the ayin raya and eisen shemas. There's an ear, ayin
It
ear.
was bothering me too.
What
But
is he
that's
saying?
just a metaphor.
And then there's a pasuk. Hayetzer ayin, right? Hayetzer eisen. Halo yira yitzer ayin halo yishma einei Hashem oznei Hashem.
דיברה תורה בלשון בני אדם, that's it.
So yes,
We
but
understand that.
but
That's
it's
why-
not. The Rebbe is saying something different here, which is like this. In general, it's explained in Chassidus and Kabbalah that when it comes to Hashem, there are different levels. There's one pasuk. I think we've spoken about this before. There's one pasuk that says that that on the Merkava, Yecheskel said that what did he saw? Kedmus Kamara Adam. He saw like the image of a person. So Hashem there is compared some way, Kedmus, the likeness of a human being. There's another pasuk in Shmuel where it says Kilei Adam, that Hashem is not an Adam. So how do you resolve this? Obviously, it's not a huge question. It doesn't say that Yecheskel saw Adam, it's Kedmus Adam, but in Chassidus explain that there's the level of Hashem as he is higher than Atzilus. There, like Adam, who there Hashem. There's no he's not an Adam. He's not a Demus Adam. He's nothing. There is no eyes. There is no ears. There is no physical eyes. There is no physical. There is no spiritual eyes. There is no spiritual ears. It's what's called Pshitos. It's one. Hashem is one, and then there's Hashem as he comes down to the lower levels. Expressions of Hashem's chayis. So also when we're talking about Hashem reacting in any way, we're not talking about the essence of Hashem. The essence of Hashem, there we're talking about Hashem. But there, Hashem, in the essential level of Hashem, he's aware of everything that's going on in the world through self-knowledge, but at the same time, he's utterly unimpacted.
He told the Malachim, Naaseh Adam, Etzalmenu, in the beginning.
Right.
Naaseh Adam.
But that's with Salmenu, as Hashem is in Atzilus, as Hashem is Adam, right? V'hine k'dei lahaskel zaheta v'sechlenu, in order to understand this idea well in our mind, how Hashem, on the one hand, is completely one and united with creation, and everything that happens there, he's aware of it through self-knowledge. So to understand this, the Mukubalim dealt with this at length in the Sfarim. However, Kol Yisrael, all of us Yidin, Maminim and Imamidim, we are believers, the children of believers. Whether we understand it, whether we don't understand it, and every day we say, you are the one who was there before the world was created, etc. And you are the same one after the world was created. In other words, there's no differences at all, Kenal, as explained earlier in Perechaf. So to summarize what we're saying over here, Hashem is aware of everything in a way of self-knowledge, but even deeper self-knowledge than by the human being, because by the human being, think about it. Our self-knowledge, do I intrinsically know what's going on my foot?
Yes.
No, I know about it. Why? Because I'm affected by it. I'm impacted by it. So therefore, for example, when a person, Rahman al-Khan, is paralyzed, let's say he has a foot that's paralyzed, but it's alive, it's fully alive, the blood it's alive. Or if you didn't have to use the example of paralyzed. If you ever got a filling or something and you got your, right? So you become all numb, you go, right? You could bite, as it happens, you'll bite your inside, right? And you don't feel anything, but 3 hours later you'll feel it, right? So how is it that you don't feel it? Because since you shut off the sensors that are sending the signals to the brain, so you don't feel it. So the self-knowledge that we have is limited to the fact that we're receiving these signals. But Hashem isn't impacted. And yet Hashem is still aware. So that's an even deeper self-knowledge than what is possible on the human level. So all this is there to address that which we're asking again. Hashem doesn't have a body? Says Dr. Rebbe, yes, you're right, he doesn't have a body. His awareness of us is much higher and much more essential and therefore much deeper than were he, chas v'sholem, to have a body or eyes or ears, etc. Thank you. Now, if we can go off a little on the side. This Shabbos is Yud Gimel Tishrei, and it is the yard site of the fourth Rebbe, fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe. His name was Rabbi Shmuel of Lubavitch, known as the Rebbe Maharash. And the Frierdiker Rebbe told over a story about him, and the Rebbe also repeated the story in the very first Maimer when the Rebbe became a Rebbe. The Rebbe repeated the story. He said that the Rebbe Maharash, he was a Rebbe for a very short time. He became Rebbe in the year 1866, and he passed away in 1883. So he was a Rebbe for like last 16 years or something. Passed away. He was 48. He was very young when he passed away.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was a very terrible time for the Yidden in Russia. A time of pogroms. There was a lot of. So he was a very, very major asken. A lot of his work was simply trying to to save the Yidden in any way possible. You know, so many Russian Yidden came to America in those years, and around the 1880s, and those years, because of all the terrible things that were going on at that time in Russia and in Ukraine. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said that once the Rebbe Marash, he told his attendant, "We have to go. To go to France, to go to Paris." He was a very busy person, the Rebbe Marash, as mentioned. And, to illustrate this point, the Rebbe said that he was so busy that there were times that at 8 o'clock in the morning he was already after davening. Now, for many of you, that doesn't sound very surprising, but for Chabad Rebbe, 8 o'clock in the morning to be after davening, when often the Rebbes would daven, till he knows how long, but that's how busy he was. So they went to Paris, and the Rebbe Marash said, "I want to go to this particular hotel." He named the hotel, so they went to the hotel. And when they went to get the room, so the Rebbe Marash asked the person by the desk, he says, "On which floor is the casino?" So he said, "It's on this floor." So the Rebbe Marash says, "Okay, I want a room on that floor." The attendant, okay, they go to the room, and after being there for a few minutes, the Rebbe Marash says, "Okay, come with me." And he walked straight into the casino and walked straight over to one of the tables over there where they're playing, cards or something. And there's a guy standing there by the table with a glass of wine. You know, this is Paris. A glass of wine, sipping on a glass of wine. Obviously, not kosher wine. The Rebbe Marash walks over to him, taps him on the back, and he turns around and he says to him, young man, Yayin Nesach is metamtem halev hamayach. Non-kosher wine, it pollutes the mind and the heart. Do tshuva.
He's Jewish again. How did you know he was Jewish?
Apparently so. The Rebbe Marash turned around, went back to his room, and told his attendant, "Let's head back to Lubavitch." And that was the whole trip. Headed back to Lubavitch. And shortly thereafter, guess who comes to Lubavitch? This person. He comes to Lubavitch, and he became a Baal Tshuva, and a whole mishpacha of Yerushalayim came from this person. Now, obviously, there are many elements to the story, and there's the element of the Ahavas Yisrael, which is what the Rebbe tries to illustrate, the tremendous Ahavas Yisrael that the Rebbe Marash had to make this journey just for this one year. Although later the Rebbe Marash he said that you should know that this person had a very high neshama, has a very high neshama. The Chmamish got stuck into klippas. But I have a question: how did the Rebbe Marash know about this Jew in the casino in Paris?
It's far away.
How did he know about it? And if it would have been close, how would he have known?
It's the same story.
So what's the standard answer that we give for these things? It's Ruach HaKodesh, right?
How the Rebbe know a million different things in different end of the world. You know something happened.
There was a great chassid whose name was Reb Chanya Mirazov, Rabbi Chanan Dov Mirazov. He was the chassid of the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he was once asked whether he thought that his Rebbe had Ruach HaKodesh. So he said, "I don't know. It doesn't matter to me." He says, if a Rebbe is supposed to have Ruach HaKodesh, he has it. And if a Rebbe doesn't need Ruach HaKodesh, then it really doesn't matter to me whether he has it or not. He's my Rebbe. And to me, that's much greater than Ruach HaKodesh. So if a Rebbe is supposed to have it, he has it. If not, that doesn't in any way impact. I'm not his chassid because he has Ruach HaKodesh and therefore can do tricks and therefore knows what's going on, on the other end of the world.
It's related to our...
Because a Rebbe... Who?
This Rabbi Morozov.
It's his great-grandfather.
He's the one who passed away.
The father of the one who passed away.
Oh, the father.
Yeah. The Rebbe says over this. The Rebbe says over this story about that Reb Chanya Mirazov, that he was once asked, and this was his answer. And it's a very deep idea, which is it possible that the Rebbe Marash had Ruach HaKodesh? It's possible. But the fact that a Rebbe is aware of a Yid in Paris in the casino, how does he know about it? The same way I know my toe is hurting.
Self-knowledge.
A Rebbe is a Reish B'nai Yisrael. A Rebbe is a leader of God, a leader. But the word Reish literally means the head. So just like the head is aware of everything that goes on in the body, so an emes tzaddik, someone who's a Reish B'nai Yisrael, there's a reason why they're called the Reish B'nai Yisrael. When Moshe Rabbeinu talks about the Yidden, he says, Sheish Meis Elef Ragli Ha'am Asher Nechi B'Kibrei. So I have 600,000 feet. The Yidden, each Yid is one of my feet. So of course I know what's going on. I don't need Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh means I see this far. Ruach HaKodesh means I see further. Or I see only in the present. Ruach HaKodesh means I see in the future. The Ruach HaKodesh would mean that the Barash was aware of it because he had more powerful awareness or eyesight than us. No, it was Yediyas Atzmai. It's self-knowledge. And that's why tzaddikim, always, what they're aware of when another Yid is in trouble, it's not because of Ruach HaKodesh. I'm not a big tzaddik. I'm not sure exactly how the mechanism works. And very possibly that Barash did have Ruach HaKodesh, but that's not the point. The point is that an emes tzaddik is someone who taka feels everything that's going on by every other Yid.
So some Mekubalim, I was with a lot of Mekubalim. They come to my house and speak to people. They see thing that was in the past, in the future, they tell the person.
Again, I'm not saying that I'm not saying there is no Ruach HaKodesh, but I'm saying there's something even deeper than that. Something even deeper. The tzaddik's understanding of what's going on is even deeper than that. It's the Reb Chaim Vital says that we say, and when we say Ashamnu, we say Al Chet. We do it. Everything is in plural. Al Chet Shechatanu, Ashamnu, plural. What's the plural? And he says, why did my Rebbe, the Arizal, why did he say this? He never did Averis. But because he's the head, he feels the Averis of everyone. So in the plural, he's feeling the Averis of everyone. And with the Rebbe, there are many such stories, many incredible stories. There's a chassid whose name was Pinchas Woolstone, and he was a Baal Tshuva from Australia. And he became a Baal Tshuva in Australia. After he became Baal Tshuva, he actually found out that he was related to the Rebbe. He was a grandson of the Tzemach Tzedek. But he was in Australia. He wasn't from it all. He became from. He learned in Kfar Chabad, and then he came to America for a little, and he was in Crown Heights. And when he was there, one day he bumped into a Rav in New York, a non-Lubavitch Rav. And the Rav says, listen, you're from Australia, you're probably going to end up going back to Australia. He says, you should know that there is a woman from Borough Park who, from a lady who she had a very difficult marriage. And then, to top it all off, her husband refused to give her a get for many years. She was an aguna. So she disappeared. And the rumor is that she's in Australia. So when you go back to Australia, if you happen to see her, let me know.
Look for her.
So this guy says, I told the Rav, Australia is as big as the United States. It's like, imagine you're somewhere. So you're going back to the United States. If you see this person in the United States, So the Rebbe says, but you're a Lubavitcher. When you go into the Rebbe, ask your Rebbe what to do. So he went into the Rebbe because when it came the time for him to go back to Australia, he went into the Rebbe, and before he left the Rebbe's room, so he told the Rebbe about this story, about this lady. And he asked the Rebbe what to do. So the Rebbe says, you go back to Australia, maybe you should go to Brisbane. Brisbane is a city in Australia. It's like an hour north of Sydney by plane. Very few Yidden. Now there's a Chabad Shliach there. Very few Yidden. Then there was nothing. Maybe you should go next week. Maybe you should go to Brisbane. So he goes to Australia and immediately he books a ticket to Brisbane, and he's on the plane to Brisbane, and sitting next to him is a lady who is a very Orthodox Greek, or a religious Greek Orthodox Christian. And she starts talking to him, and she starts asking him different questions about Yiddishkeit. And then at the end of the conversation, as the flight was almost finished, she says to him, let me ask you a question. If a Jew leaves Judaism, are they rejected forever? Is the door closed, or can they come back?
This is a hint for him.
So he starts explaining that no, in Yiddishkeit there's no such thing as that's who a person is. You can take a vacation, but you always can and should come back. So she said to him, you should know that I own a chain of women's clothing stores in Australia. And I have a store in the city of Cairns, spelled Kairns. And there's a girl who works there. And she's Jewish. And it's very obvious that she's not behaving now the way she used to. And she says she's happy, but I see that she isn't happy. And I'm wondering if there's anything you could do for her.
Wow.
And when he heard this, he literally started shaking. Literally started shaking. He's like, and he said, he told this lady, I want you to know the reason why I'm going to Brisbane is because my Rebbe, my great rabbi, I asked her about finding a missing woman. He told me to go to Brisbane. I have no idea even where I'm going in Brisbane. And I'm pretty sure that this is the woman. So he got off in Brisbane. He took a flight straight to what?
Her store.
To Cairns. He took a flight to the next place. He went into the store. She wasn't there. She was on a break. He waited. He came back, and first she didn't want to talk to him. She said, "I'm working." So he waited till the end of her shift, and she wasn't very happy to see him. I mean, she was shocked, absolutely shocked to see from a chassid in Cairns, Australia, in a woman's clothing store. And he didn't know. He said straight out. He said, "I'm here," and he said the whole story with how the Rebbe sent him. And she said, "Listen, all I ever wanted was a get. That's all I wanted. And if you can help me with a get, great. But if not, have a nice day." So he got back. They got back in contact with New York. They found her, and they finally convinced the husband to give her a get. And she gave her get. She moved back to America. She still wasn't from, and she decided she's going to college. She went to college, and in the college there was a Chabad on campus. She started attending Friday night meals. She eventually became a complete Baal Shem Tov, and she now lives in Israel, married with a Gatsa Mishpacha, because of that trip to Brisbane. And there are many such stories. And how did the Rebbe know that she was in all these things? So again, one way to look at it is Ruach HaKodesh, but the Rebbe Pashat, as a Reish B'nai Yisrael, the Rebbe senses where every limb is and how every limb is doing and what's going on. And if we can go a little on tangent, just one more story which I heard from the grandson of the person who it happened to. So this is a person whose name was Michal HaSofer. And he was, he passed away, right? He passed away a few years ago. He was an Egyptian Jew, and he was a communist, an atheist, and in the 50s he moved to Tasmania.
Where is that?
Tasmania. Tasmania is underneath Australia.
It's an island.
What? An island, south of Australia.
Oh, yeah, never heard.
No, which is in Yiddishkeit at all.
There's no Chabad there.
No, Chabad there.
Today there's Chabad there, but I'm saying it's like no, but then there was nothing. Then there was nothing, and he was married also to this to an Israeli woman. But again, they were running away from everything. Now there was a minyan over there in Tasmania, like 10 Jews over there. And when he came to town, he was a professor. They found out about him, and they came to him and they asked him. They said, "Can you be our chazan?" No one here knows how to read Hebrew, and you know how to read Hebrew. So at first he laughed and said, "I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the Torah. I should be your chazan." But they insisted. They said, "Listen, you read Hebrew. You're more learned than the rest of us." So he said, "Okay, let's say it if you insist." So he started going to shul. He started being the chazan, and slowly but surely he started becoming a little more and more interested in Yiddishkeit. Him and his wife, and they already had a few kids. And then one day, he had a thought came to him, because he had been learning a lot of Tanakh. And he says, "I'm looking for the Tanakh, and I see that in every single generation, the Jewish people had a leader.
Hey, what?
Had a leader. Moshe, Yeshua, Devera, David, Yeshua. So it has to be that today also,
The leader.
there's a leader to Klal Yisrael. And if that's the case, then the leader should help me, in my journey back to Yiddishkeit." And sure enough, a few days later, he's walking in the street, and who does he see? He sees a Orthodox guy with a hat and jacket and everything walking the street, and obviously he's looking for something. He goes over and says, "Hello, you're looking for something?" "Yeah, I'm looking for a Jew." He says, "I'm a Jew, coming to the house." His name was Rabbi Chaim Gutnick. If you ever heard the famous, the wealthy Gutnick, that's his father. Rabbi Chaim Gutnick was his father. And what happened was that a few days earlier he had gotten a telegram from the Rebbe telling him to go to Tasmania. That was the whole telegram. Go to Tasmania.
Looking for a job.
What?
Who's this person? What?
Chaim. His name was Chaim. Chaim Gutnick.
Gutnick?
Rabbi Chaim
That's
Gutnick.
the
Yeah.
son of the
How big?
No, the wealthy person is his son.
It's the son.
Yeah,
I see,
yeah.
I see.
How big is Tasmania?
Father.
I don't know. I don't know how big it
Never
is.
heard of it,
Anyways, they ended up. There's actually a lot more to that story. At the end, this person himself brought back many Yidden to Yiddishkeit. This Hasofer himself. The Rebbe used him in many different ways to make different Bali Tshuva, including in Malaysia. He went, but the point is again that Emes Tzaddik is someone who feels every Yid biyedias atzmei, by feeling himself, not in a, and obviously this is magnified so many more times when we're talking about Hashem, that the fact that Hashem is aware of what's going on with every single one of us, which is the point that the Rebbe is trying to make over here, is not because he has eyes or ears, but because since he's the one who's giving life to everything, by knowing himself, he also knows everything else. And with this, we are going to conclude that which we started in the beginning of Perek Mem Beis. If you remember, we asked the question, which was, that Moshe Rabbeinu turns to the Yidden and says, Ma Hashem Elokecha shoyel mi'imach. What does Hashem want of you? Ki im liyira. All he wants is that you should fear him. So the Rebbe asked him that. Actually, the Gemara asked him that. Not the Gemara asks, Atu yira milsa zutrasei. Is that a small thing? Is that a small little demand that you're poo-pooing it, right? Making it sound so trivial? And the Gemara answers in, yes, L'gabi Moshe milsa zutrasei. With regard to Moshe, it's a small thing. So the Rebbe asked right away. But Moshe is not talking to himself. He's not looking in a mirror. He's talking to Klal Yisrael. So the Rebbe explains that this is where we're going to end off. The Rebbe says that what that means to say is that if we get in touch with the das which is within ourselves, as explained at length over the last few weeks, how we get das, through receiving from the neshama of Moshe, through being in touch with the Moshe Rabbeinu, which is within the generation, and through the work which we described last week, the his baininus, then through the koyach of das of Moshe within us, if we get in touch with that, then taka yira milsa zutrasi, then yira is a small thing. Then yira is a small thing, because if Hashem is real to me, if I have das, and if Hashem is something that I can connect to in a real way, then to have yira Hashem is not something which is a big deal. Inside, v'hinei kol adam Yisrael, every yid yihiyeh mishiyeh, regardless of who he or she may be. When you take a significant amount of time every day to contemplate how Hashem fills literally the higher worlds, the lower worlds, the heavens and the earth literally, this entire world is literally filled with Hashem's glory. Hashem is watching and looking and is testing your heart and your insides and all your actions and all your words, and he is counting all your steps. As I then, if a person takes a significant amount of time to be mizbein in this, that is going to establish Yiras Hashem within your heart the entire day. When you think about it, even very little, a little thought at any time, you'll stay away from evil, you'll do good in machshava, dibur maisa, not to rebel against Hashem, who fills the entire world. But the Rebbe is saying like this: if in the morning you take a significant amount of time, whether it's whatever is significant for you, if it's an hour or if it's 4 minutes, but to really think about it, and as we've discussed in the past, thinking is not easy. We'd rather learn 3 chapters of Tanya than sit and think for 3 minutes. It's a nature just to sit and to focus. But if we take the time, in the morning, to focus on Yiras Hashem, to think about how Hashem literally, He's here, He fills the entire world, watching everything, that establishes the Yiras Hashem in your heart, and then throughout the day, you're not going to need to think for 10 minutes. Anytime when you have a Nesayim, when you have a test, when Chas v'Shalom you want to do an Avera, or if you're lazy and you don't want to do a mitzvah, All you need to do is take one moment, remind yourself of the Yiras Hashem, which you already contemplated in the morning, which you already, established in your heart that morning, and that will be enough to get you going throughout the entire day. You put in the work once in the morning, and after that, it just takes a little, just reminding yourself.
A booster.
Yeah, a little, very good, a booster. A booster which takes 5 seconds, and you're good again. You're good again. If you don't have that time in the morning, then, but if you establish the Yiras Hashem, you take the time every morning to establish the Yiras Hashem in your heart, then throughout the day, all you need to do is once in a while is the occasional reminder, and you're good for the day.
This is before davening or after davening? That he is burning this.
But this is, if you didn't do before davening, you can do it after davening, but the proper time
Which is more preferred?
is before davening anyways. You're supposed to think about Rebbe Musakel v'Shifl Sa'adam. That's a preparation for davening. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. So it's a proper time anyways to think about the greatness of Hashem, the lowliness of us, and what Hashem is watching us and expecting of us. As Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to the students, as mentioned earlier, that we can begin to relate to Hashem as a real reality, just like a fellow human being. We relate to a fellow human being, we can relate to Hashem in the same way. And this is what the pasuk says. Moshe says, what does he want? Ma Hashem she'el mimcha ki'im only liyiras Hashem alikecha, to fear Hashem, laleches b'chol derachav, and to go in His ways. So the Rebbe over here is saying that these two are related to each other. They're connected. You should fear Hashem, and what is the purpose of the fear? To go in His ways. In other words, you have to have a minimum of the fear which brings to doing Hashem's mitzvah, staying away from evil and doing that which is good. Meaning, as we learned a little, and as we'll learn more in Mir Hashem in next Perik, there are many different levels of Yiras Hashem. There's the highest level of Yiras Hashem, where a person is trembling and in awe and standing in fear of Hashem the entire day. Right? What does pachad mean? And that's a very, what? Pachad, right? Tein pachtacha.
Fear.
Or
When the Alter Rebbe would daven in Rosh Hashanah, so I think I mentioned this in the past, that they had to pad the wall. In general, when the Alter Rebbe davened, they had to pad the walls because he would enter such an incredible dveikus and his lahavos. He would pound the walls and his hands would get bloody. So they had to put pads on the wall. And he would also do somersaults sometimes when he was davening, or when he was actually also when he was saying Torah. Yeah.
wish I can do that.
If you learn the Rambam, what it says about Nevi'im, how the Nevi'im, when they would receive a Nevuah, how they would completely, their body would, right. So when Dr. Rebbe would get to V'chein tein pachtacha also, V'chein tein pach, he used to say the word, he couldn't get the word out of his mouth. It was so frightening. So such Yiras Hashem, they couldn't say the word even. But that's not the Yira. Moshe wasn't coming and telling us, what does Hashem want of you? All He wants is that you should be sitting and trembling the entire day in awe of His greatness. Because that's not something which is available and accessible to all of us. He said one thing. He says, Ma Hashem she'el mimcha, what does Hashem want of you? Leyiras Hashem, to fear Hashem, laleches b'chol derachav. A fear. Do you want to know how much fear you need? Enough to go in His ways, to do the Torah and the mitzvahs. And what fear is that? That's the fear that we just spoke about. The knowledge that Hashem is watching me and listening to me, and every single thing that I'm doing is being recorded. That fear, Moshe says, is accessible to every single yid. Maybe not the highest level of fear, but the Yiras Hashem alikecha, lo leches b'chol derachav, the fear of Hashem which leads me to go in His ways, that is possible, again, if I take the time to have das and to think about it every day, for a substantial amount of time in the morning, and then again to take that booster every during the day as needed.
It's that low.
Sorry?
It's that low fear that Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said.
Right, that's the Yerichim Zaki, right. But this is a very important thing, because how many of us are like, I don't really have Yiras Hashem, I don't really fear Hashem, I'm nothing, right? I'm garbage. Don't worry about that. Your job is Yiras Hashem alikacha, lalachas b'chal derachav. And if you have that, you're good. You have to have fear of Hashem to the extent that you're doing Torah mitzvahs. But again, the fear, you're doing it out of fear of Hashem, not because it feels good. We have to have the fear of Hashem to the point that we do Torah mitzvahs. V'hi yira tata hanal. This is the lowest level of yira, as mentioned earlier, which is why, if you remember the first words of Perik Ben Beis, Dr. Rebbe says, V'hine b'mash and isbar li'il b'inyan yira tata, based on the fact that we learned yira tata, now we can understand the pasuk of Ma'ashem Alekecha. Because if there's only the highest level of yira, then the pasuk still doesn't make sense. But since we learned that there's idea of yira tata, lower level of yira is simply the fear of knowing that Hashem is everywhere and watching what I'm doing, and that's something, V'hi yira tata, now that's the lower level of yira, u'legabi Moshe, and relative to Moshe, dahainu, meaning legabi b'chinas hadash b'chol nefesh miyisrael, relative to the das, again, which was within every single yid, and as we know, das comes from Moshe Rabbeinu, milsa zutra sehi, it's taka a small thing. Taka a small thing.
When Moshe
Canal,
said,
as mentioned earlier.
when Moshe said la'lechet b'derech Hashem, he meant to imitate Hashem?
No. The ways of Hashem are the mitzvahs. To go in His ways means follow the ways that Hashem told you to follow, which means do the mitzvahs and stay away from Averos. Shahadasu amekasher matspuni yabina salev, because as you know, das connects that which is hidden in the heart. Al bechinas gilui. In other words, that yiras Hashem. What we discussed last year, the oitzir of yiras Shemayim, which is hidden in the heart. Al bechinas gilui b'machshava. Das brings it in a revealed way in the mind. Mamish, literally, ki yadu al yedechein, as is known to those who study Kabbalah. So therefore, das allows us, at the very least, even if you're from the lowest neshama, and even if you've done Averis in the past, through the work of das, which you get from Moshe Rabbeinu, you can, at the minimum, arrive at Yira Tata, this lowest level of Yiras Hashem. There are higher levels of Yira, but this, what Moshe is coming and saying, what does Hashem want of you? All He wants is fear, and we're like, really? Moshe says, yeah. If you connect to me, you connect to what I'm giving you, the das and the neshama, you can have, at the very least, a Yira, that lowest level of Yira. Now, so just to recap what we learned today. So we started off by asking the question, how can we have fear of something which is, there is no eye, there is no body, there is no... So we said, we have to understand that Hashem's knowledge is higher and more substantial and more real and more deep because He doesn't have the body. And then we moved on to conclude this idea of, we started about Atu Yira Milsa Zutra Sahim. In Yirtzeh Hashem, and next year we're going to move on. Dr. Rebbe is going to introduce a beautiful new idea, another way to address the question of how can I fear something which I can't see with my eyes, something which I can't relate to with my five senses. Dr. Rebbe is going to bring a very beautiful idea how we can fear Hashem regardless, or actually how we can use our five senses to actually also bring us to fear Hashem. And that will continue with Hashem after Sukkot. Have a good Yom Tov, everyone. Shafta Mayim B'Sasmin Mayna Yeshua. Next year will be the Sunday, the Thursday afterwards, and there might be something Chalmud. If you'll hear about it. But as of right now, the next year is in 2 weeks from tonight.
How difficult.